Your Excellency, thank you so much for joining CNBC. It's great to have you here at Davos.
Thank you for having me.
These days, the headlines are dominated with words like inflation, recession, famine, and war. How, as an investor, as a sovereign wealth fund, do you navigate the current political and economic climate?
See, Hadley, we are in the business of creating wealth for the future generation. And we do design and construct and manage a portfolio which is to create a risk-return objectives. And we design it in a way that it should be very, very diversified from a geographical allocation and sectorial as well. So, and we always anticipate these sort of slowdown and recession and political crisis from time to time. But having it very diversified give us a resilient in our portfolio. And also keeping in mind we are a long-term investors. We always invest for the future generation, and we go through the cycle. And normally, there is a slowdown and there is upward performance. So this is what gives us a resilience.
Is there optimism in your view for what's happening right now, given what we've seen in terms of the bloodbath in the stock market versus what's happening in the bond market? What's more attractive to you at this point?
See, the sell-off that we see, I think it embedded all of the bad scenario that we are talking about. So we're talking about recession, inflation, geopolitical issue. But still, I think I'm a little bit less pessimistic on it.
Why?
Why? Because I think we are a better shape in terms of the banking sector. It has a good balance sheet, which is we have a good liquidity. People have accumulated the wealth during the pandemic. A good unemployment rate right now. All these elements give us a good shape in getting into other problems. I'm not saying that we will not have a slowdown. I'm not saying that we might not have a recession. But if we have a recession, it would be a light recession.
So central banks printing more and more money does not concern you?
No, I think it's we have to control inflation. This is the main things. I think having an 8% and the CPI is a high number, and I totally agree with the Fed that they need to control it.
When you think about this a bit more broadly in terms of your investment strategy, looking at the Qatar Investment Authority, it's an interesting dynamic because on the one hand, geopolitically right now, Qatar has really worked to fill the gap when it comes to natural gas supplies. The United States has named you a non-NATO ally, which is an incredible status for a Gulf nation. You're now one of 3 GCC countries who has that status as a direct result of this Ukraine crisis. And on the flip side of that, you've decided against divesting yourselves of all of the assets that you have in Russia. And we're talking to the tune of billions of dollars. Don't you see that as some kind of conflict of interest?
No, this is divesting from Russia. First of all, we are in full compliance with the international sanction rule, and we are updating ourselves of any update that these rules are undertaking. So, and we have a smaller exposure in Russia comparing to the overall portfolio that we have. That's why I go back to the resilient that our portfolio is there. Practically, it is very hard to exit now. There is no transaction going on, and we have no plan to deploy more investment, and this has been very clear, and our view on this.
Yeah. But you're playing the long game, because you say yes. we think decades down the road.
Absolutely. This is where I think the value of creation. I think being a long-term investor is creating a wealth, and compounding the return that we have during the long-term horizon that we have.
So potentially being on the wrong side of history doesn't weigh with you in terms of your investment strategy?
No, not really. I think having this very long-sighted view is really helpful in terms of building a portfolio.
When you think about what happens next with regards to the European energy situation, obviously a deal has just been signed with Germany and Qatar to provide LNG. Of course, part of this is the fact that the Germans still have to get their own infrastructure in place to take that LNG in. Do you see this perhaps as a catalyst for further investment in that country by the
Absolutely. Europe is a continent that we have a huge portfolio, and we always say that we would like to rebalance our portfolio in other regions, but we cannot stop investing in Europe. As you know, Europe is very important, and we will help them toward the transition of energy. Of course, during this difficult year, they might have a little bit of difficulties because the prices is not really helping the growth of Europe.
Yeah.
But keep in mind, they are very advanced on their transition of energy. I mean, the number of projects that we see in Europe are an advanced stage comparing to the US and Asia. And this will give them an advantage in 3 or 5 years.
Yeah.
So I really bullish about Europe in 3 to 5 years.
In 3 to 5 years, but do you see a recession possible?
It could be. Europe would be in a difficult situation right now,
yeah,
especially with energy prices.
Yeah. When you think about what happens next with regards to Elon Musk and Twitter, it seems as if you guys are confident he's going to get this deal.
You know, Hadley, I cannot comment. As you know, the transaction is on right now. But we have been very vocal about technologies, and we would like to deploy more investment in that space.
Yeah. Is this something that we're going to see more of from the QIA? In terms of technology investments?
Yeah, absolutely. We will continue. Technology is being, we are living with the era of technology, and it is disturbing every single sectors.
Yeah.
And it is changing the consumer behavior as well as the business behavior. We are trying to really identify the themes and the businesses that be a winner on that space. So you will always see us very active in technology.
And Elon Musk to you is a winner.
We really believe in his leadership.
Yeah. Think about this a little bit more broadly for me in terms of those technology investments. Are we talking about data centers? Are we talking about startups? What are the things that you look at and say, this is something we want to be involved in?
All of them. Technology has impacted every single sector. We have a team dedicated for every major industries. And we have noticed that technology are getting into every single industries in our business. From purely technology and software businesses to even real estate now, where technologies is playing a role. Even in retail and consumer, it's playing a role. It is really disturbing every single, and we would like to really make sure that our team, who I believe they are like a center of excellencies of their industries, are really identifying the themes and the trend and the opportunities that we should invest in.
Yeah. What about the traditional sectors? For example, financial institutions, banks, Credit Suisse. Obviously, your stake in Credit Suisse is much less than previous. Is that just a direct reflection of your distrust of the management of that bank, or is this a broader theme?
No, we still strategic investors in Credit Suisse, and we really believe in financial institutions. We have a team who are dedicated in identifying opportunities within financial institutions, whether banking or insurance. We are also very active in fintech industries. Yeah. Is a trend.
But just to Credit Suisse, to that point, so you still have confidence in their leadership?
Yes, absolutely. They have a new chairman, they have a new CEOs, they have changed some of the leadership within Credit Suisse. I totally believe in their capabilities, and I hope that you will see a performance on their balance sheet.
Yeah. When you think about what happens next with regards to the geopolitics of this question, and I mean, obviously the United States has expressed a great deal of discomfort with GCC member states, Qatar, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, moving closer to Asia, moving closer specifically to Beijing. How do you navigate that as a sovereign wealth fund? Because as you say, you've got to diversify your portfolio, you've got to think long term. Are we talking about long term as in an era when the United States is no longer the dominant geopolitical and economic force in the world?
Not really. It's part of, again, of our diversification. I mean, China is a huge economy you cannot ignore. I mean, there are even companies and asset management companies in the U.S. who are very active in China. So I don't think so. It is very sensitive as long as you are, putting it in very financial perspectives, and you have business objectives that you would like to have an exposure in China. Yeah. And this is part of your diversification objectives. Yeah.
Walk me through in terms of what looks attractive to you in this next year, because we've talked about recession potentially in Europe and elsewhere. We've talked about fintech, for example, that you're very interested in investing in. What are some of the themes?
Of course, ESG, we have been very vocal about it, and we have been very active. 2 years ago here in Davos, we have announced that we will not deploy more in hydrocarbon, which is a big step. We are drafting our policies that articulate our aim on this and how we monitor what are the KPI that we would like to. And this is a theme that has been spread over our teams, whether they are in the infrastructure or technologies, and they are identifying opportunities within their sector. So we are very active in power generations, renewables. 45% of our power generation is a zero emission. We are active and we are helping Africa, US, Europe, even India, and they're in transition. We are also investing in electrical cars, as this is very important for as an automotive theme. We are active even in technologies in terms of energy storage, which is something is important to really help our transition into this, especially for the renewable. Also, lately we are venturing with Rolls-Royce in terms of really coming up with or implementing a concept of the SMR using the nuclear in a smaller capacity. Yeah. And if this has become successful, I think it would be a catalyst for so many countries to really generate their power from this small, power generation using nuclear. Yeah. So we are very active in every single aspect to make sure that the world is moving toward the transition toward the cleaner energy.
Well, considering where oil and gas prices are today, but gas more central obviously to your economy, I mean, when you've got, and correct me if I'm wrong, 450 billion in reserves, that buys you a lot of political and economic clout. How do you see this evolving given the current political and economic climate? Because the world may be hurting, but Qatar is doing really well.
Yes, that's definitely. All of the hydrocarbon producing countries are generating, because of the inflation is reflecting in the commodity prices, definitely. But we are, a producer of LNG, which is, I think, the main commodities for the transition. And I think the world needs a transition where we cannot really go from A to C without this movement. People at the end of the day, they need an energy to, and we are proud that we are producing LNG to help. And our colleagues in Qatar Energy, they are, expanding their production 60%, and they are engaging with talk with so many countries to sell their commodities.
Yeah, so you anticipate those revenues will continue to increase?
Yes, absolutely. And we will be part of this, taking some of this revenues to diversify our economy away from hydrocarbon.
Your Excellency, thank you so much for joining CNBC.
Thank you very much.